I'm working or being placed at a men's prison, and most people never go into a prison in their whole lives. The people who are there are usually have been in for a long time, and either they're coming to the end of their sentence or maybe they're in there for life. You end up just being involved in these very interesting conversations. It's just interesting dealing with people who have obviously committed something wrong against society and have been taken out of society because of this, and how that has impacted, or indeed hasn't impacted, their view of forgiveness.
Welcome to our podcast, which we'll have with Georgie, who is a student at Newbold, and she will share with us today about her special placement that she does in prison. And I hope you're going to enjoy it. Georgie, could you introduce yourself a little bit and what you do at Newbold?
So I'm Georgina. I'm in my third year currently at Newbold. I'm studying the Biblical and Pastoral Studies bachelor's degree. And I'm currently in my first semester of my third year. And what we're talking about today is my placement, which I started in my second semester of my second year. So in January of this year, I started. So before I was at Wokingham Church for my first placement, but then I happened to visit this prison with with a fellow student, and we went there after hearing a few talks about prison ministries, and we were like, maybe we could get a bunch of students to go there and we can minister to people within the prison. I knew that I wasn't 100% sure whether I wanted to be a pastor or whether I wanted to go into something else. And I thought, well, this placement idea is something which I could use, as it were, to my advantage and do something that I wouldn't usually get to do.
Yep.
So I contacted the prison saying, would you be able to take me as a placement student? And they said, yeah, of course. I contacted Adrian Peck and he said, yeah, that sounds great. He's the placement supervisor.
So if you were to describe a little bit the setting as to when you go there, what happens? And so we often maybe see it just in the movies and you have certain ideas as what happens and what people do there. So how would you position it?
Yeah, so I'm working or being placed at a men's prison. It's a category C prison, which means that it's relatively low security. It's often for people who are at the end of their sentences, and it's not one where you go straight from court, you go into this prison. It's one that often you'd end up at later on. So the people who are there are usually have been in for a long time, and either they're coming to the end of their sentence or maybe they're in there for life. And it's about 500 people.
Wow, that's huge.
Yes, so I think they've got maybe 4 or 5 wings, and everybody, I thought that you'd have shared cells like you do in a film. That's what you see, people on bunk beds. But actually, pretty much everyone has their own cell there. And some of them look nicer than, I'm just going to say, some of my friends' uni accommodation. It definitely looks nicer in there. And at the prison, they have a chapel, and they have chaplains who work there. Some of them are voluntary, some of them are employed. There's a few who are full-times. There's a managing chaplain who oversees all of them, and she's the person who I was in contact with at the beginning. And then there's a few different employed chaplains. There's a Church of England chaplain, a Sikh chaplain, a Free Church chaplain, a Buddhist chaplain, a Hindu chaplain. I believe they don't have a pagan chaplain right now, but they do have a pagan section as well. They also have a Rastafarian dedicated part, and it's a specific part of the prison where people can come for pastoral support. Maybe they come and light a candle for a lost loved one, and it's, as a chaplain, you end up getting to talk to these people. You check in on people who are new, who are in the care and segregation unit, so people who are taken out of the main prison, maybe they're they're owing people a lot of money, or they're at risk of hurting themselves. So they're put in this separate section, or maybe they've been behaving really badly, and they're put in this separate section. And every day, someone from chaplaincy should come and visit them and say, is there anything we can do for you? Is there anything that we can help you out with? And that's the same with anybody who's new. So I think it's within 24 hours during the week and 48 hours over the weekend that if they are, if there's a new person, they need to be seen within that time and asked, hey, do you identify as a particular religion or faith? Is there anything the chaplaincy can do to help you? And then they, get put into their records and they get the help from the chaplaincy.
Okay, so you describing the chaplaincy as the body of chaplains coming and helping and ministering to these people. So is that what you do as well, or how do you relate to it? Because we know a lot of details about the setting. So how did you get to it, and what do you do when you are in the prison?
Yes, so at the beginning, depending on when I'd come in, I'd also, last semester I didn't have any lectures on Fridays, so I'd sometimes go on a Friday morning.
Okay.
And I accompanied the managing chaplain into some meetings about the prisoners, people to watch out for, people who are on this specific review. If they're under care for self-harm, then they're people who you need to be aware of. And also any issues that might come up with the different prisoners. That was the kind of meeting that it was about. And then after following her around, sometimes she interviewed someone who wanted to come in and volunteer from the Salvation Army, and I'd sat in on that.
Okay, so essentially job shadow.
Yes. That basically, I'm shadowing the chaplains, but I've shadowed a few different ones.
Okay.
I've shadowed the imam, and I've now, most of the time, I'm shadowing the Church of England chaplain because he's very happy for me to be involved in what he's doing.
Did you get a chance, or do you get a chance also to talk to the people and maybe participate in some of the activities that the chaplains do?
So often, especially when I was there on Sundays or Saturdays, both of which they have services on in the morning. So on Saturdays, they have their Catholic service, and on Sundays, they have the Church of England service, just because they need to do it on a weekend. Unfortunately, it was nothing to do with what they believed about the Sabbath. But usually after the service, the prisoners are free to walk around this little area. There's, drinks and snacks, how there would be after church.
Interesting.
And you end up just being involved in these very interesting conversations.
Having a church in prison.
It's very interesting. They have to get their movement slips to be able to move from their wing to come to chaplaincy. And they can be on the list of different events that are going on in chaplaincy. So I know they have a movie night where I believe they're watching The Chosen and then discussing about it. And the other thing that I go to on Tuesdays is a Bible study. Currently it's very small. It's only me, the chaplain, and 2 other prisoners who regularly attend. But I'm involved in that, and I just feel like a participant in a normal Bible study.
That is very interesting.
We work through a different book and we discuss about what it means to us, and all of us are different denominations. So it's very interesting to see the kind of conversations that we come up with.
Is there anything particular that, kind of just pops up that you would want to share, like some interesting idea or insight that happened during these Bible studies, with where people are, what do they talk about, and what interests them?
I guess recently we were talking about we were working through a book about parables, and there's that one parable which I can't remember the exact reference for it, but I believe it's in Luke, and it's about this poor man called Lazarus and a rich man, and how Lazarus was outside and, he had boils and the dogs were licking them, and then he was in hell, or in Hades. He was laying next to Abraham, and the rich man is like, can you send Lazarus to get some water so I can lick his finger, or something like that. And the way that then people interpreted it about the state of the dead was very interesting, because obviously that's not how as Adventists we'd interpret it. So it was fascinating to see how the different conclusions people draw from different
Yeah.
things. Also, there's one person in the Bible study who doesn't believe in the Trinity,
Okay.
and how that impacts our conversations can be quite interesting.
Yeah.
But the Church of England chaplain tries to keep it on path and be like, okay, well, we're studying this parable. We're just talking about what's in the parable. We're not going to bring in other discussions right now. The other thing which popped out to me was the chaplain was talking to me about how often they don't really understand forgiveness. So one of them that we were talking to, he basically was saying, yeah, well, it wasn't really my fault, why he was in prison. But then he was also saying that if to be forgiven, you have to suffer. And then you have to, that ends up justifying what you did was wrong. And to forgive someone, you have to be like, yeah, that makes sense why you did this.
Okay.
And it's very interesting how you can hold both of these views.
Yeah.
But also, it's just interesting dealing with people who have obviously committed something wrong against society and have been taken out of society because of this, and how that has impacted, or indeed hasn't impacted, their view of forgiveness and whether they've forgiven themselves. It's such a theme that so many people in there are like, oh, I'm not really in here for any good reason. Like, it's just an accident. It's not my fault. It's just the system.
Wow. Okay.
And, oh yeah, the system is very flawed, but a lot of people have done something terrible and they can't admit to it.
They can't admit.
And that's quite interesting, especially when you're within the church and when it's clear that they have faith and yet they struggle to take accountability for something. That's very interesting.
That's a very interesting topic to explore.
Yeah.
Is there something, considering prison and prisoners and so on, so when you go there, are there moments when it's challenging also, or is there something you need to kind of watch out for? Is there something of that nature that you would like to share?
Yeah, I'd say there's two things. The first thing was one of the first meetings I had with the managing chaplain before I then went back to actually do my placement there. In the meeting, she said, just so you're aware, this is a men's prison. They've been in here for a long time. That means that a lot of them are sex deprived. And you, as a young woman coming into this, you have to be careful what you're wearing because it is something that will make a difference. And even now, one of the chaplains was telling me, whenever you come in, that prisoner acts totally differently. And that's not something that actually I can do anything about.
Yeah.
He has a history of difficult relationships with women, and it's always the woman's fault. And every story he tells you is about a woman.
Yeah.
But it's difficult going into that and going, actually, there's nothing I can do, even when I wear the most modest of clothing. It still doesn't really matter. Just my presence can impact how people behave. And I think that's quite interesting. The other thing, which I guess is quite challenging, is when you're in these Bible studies or these groups, having these conversations with people as you would at the end of a normal church service or in a normal Bible study. And then you find out, or you can, because the people who work there can look at the prisoners' records and it says why they were in. And then you find out, wow, they've done this horrendous thing.
Wow.
And I've been talking to them as if they're just a normal person. But actually, I should still talk to them as if they're a normal person. And it's this struggling with the fact that actually, these are normal people who are deserving of God's love. But actually, you do have to be on your guard. Because these people have committed some terrible things. But also, a lot of them, as I have been warned, are very good at manipulating people. So of course you're going to think that they're in there for no good reason and everything like that. So you have to be very careful. And I think recently I found out about one person, why they're in there, someone who tends to be quite condescending or patronizing in a religious way and demonstrating that they themselves know everything and they study so well. And then I go, wow, but the reason you're in here is because of this? That's crazy.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. So it touches a lot on psychology and maybe psychiatry, probably social work, sort of like in that space of learning some other things about people and how to watch out for certain signs and how to also for you to behave when you are around a different type of people that maybe we don't meet every single day. That's very interesting. So when you look at this, so I suppose that you are learning, all sorts of things. So while it's being a placement for essentially studying a bachelor degree in theology, there are a lot of different elements that are involved in it and a lot of different skill sets that you are learning as well through that. If you were to kind of think about something that beyond this learning of certain skills, does this impact you somehow in other ways for your personal spiritual growth? How do you reflect upon yourself based on this experience that you are building through this ministry?
I think that it's made me consider how someone who isn't familiar with the Bible might interpret it. Because obviously at Newbold, we focus on the context and actually how often people within the church or people who are running Sabbath school, often they don't understand the whole context and how important it is to do that. But actually, what about these people who can't access the context, or people who I've met who can't read? There are a lot of people in there who can't even read. There are some people also who are highly educated and gone to very well-known universities, and there are some people in there who can't read at all. And how these different people can access the Bible and how we can make the Bible accessible. But also, there's people who are Christian within the prison, but actually the thing that people have in common the most, rather than, oh, you're Christian or you're this, is, oh, you're religious and you interact with the chaplaincy. Because actually, whether or not you're Christian, if you are religious and you have faith and you interact with the chaplaincy, that's what's important.
Yeah.
I've had some really interesting conversations with chaplains of different denominations of Christianity, but also chaplains of different religions, and how their religion impacts their interaction with the prison and with the prisoners, and how it encourages them to reach out and help people. And I think that that's something which has grown my personal spiritual life more, is knowing actually there are lots of people who I can have something in common with because we're striving for the greater good of other people as well.
Yeah. So kind of opens eyes for kind of relating to the other worlds and other interpretations of other people, and maybe thinking about my own views and how I can make what I think, what I believe sort of accessible from their viewpoint. Something along those lines.
Because obviously there's a stereotype of people being uneducated who end up in prison, but there is a lot of people who are like that, but there's also a lot of people who aren't. And being able to access all these different levels of conversation is something which has changed how I talk about my faith. And also recognizing that all the people, whether or not they're the same religion as me, have come in with the aim to help these people in a spiritual and pastoral way, has also changed my understanding of other religions, or how individuals who are in that religion may still have the same values as me.
Excellent. Is that something then, would you recommend this to other people, maybe other students, to try it out, that kind of a placement? Or how do you see it kind of after, this has been nearly a year, right, that you have been involved with it?
Yes.
Okay. So reflecting upon that from that corner, what would you say?
I think that it's been an amazing experience. I mean, when else would you have a reason to go into a prison? Most people never go into a prison in their whole lives. And the fact that I'm key trained, so that means that I go in, I use my fingerprint to collect keys, and I open all the doors to lock them behind me.
Sounds again like the movie.
And that's really fascinating. The fact that I never thought that as an outsider, as someone who doesn't have a qualification to work there, I'd be able to have this access and experience within a prison, and meeting these different types of people, because you meet a whole range of different types of people, whether that's people who work there or people who are imprisoned there. There's I've learnt so much, and also, unfortunately, so much about how the system can be quite flawed, but also about how people can manipulate that system. And it's upsetting, but I think that it's also the truth, and that it's important for anybody functioning in the world to be able to understand how it works. And when you talk to someone who has been imprisoned in their life, you can understand a little bit more about what that was like for them. One of the students has actually accompanied me to the prison. They were really interested in prison ministry, and I talked to the chaplain and said, could this person come and visit with me? And they said, are they over 18? And I said, yes. And I gave them some more information about them, and they managed to get a pass through. So then I was able to take them into the prison and show them a little bit what it was like. And it is quite shocking the first time that you go in. I feel like while I've been there, now I've visited a few different times over a long period of time. And now I'm a little bit more normalized to it. But for people who have never been there before, it can be quite a shocking experience. But I think it's something that is definitely worth experiencing.
Could you imagine possibly you doing it also professionally in the future, or you don't know yet? I mean, this is just hypothetical, but...
No, of course. It's definitely made me more interested in it. And even talking about it now, I'm like, I do really enjoy it. But I definitely love the chaplaincy role. And I'm not sure whether that would end up being in a prison, or whether that would be in a hospital or in the military. But it's definitely something which I am considering, amongst other things. But I love being able to see how pastoral it is. I almost feel like it can be more pastoral than a pastor, because as a pastor you're running a whole entire church, and as a chaplain, yes, you have got lots of admin that you're doing, but your main focus is going to see people individually as well as running things. But every single day, like at this prison, you have to go and see people. And whereas as a pastor, sometimes you might be going on pastoral visits, but it's not your whole...
it has a different set of skills and different type of combination of jobs that you do.
And I love the interaction that they build with people and how they can help someone, especially in that spiritual guidance way. That's really cool.
Well, this is really fascinating. Thank you for sharing your story about the student placement. I really love the connection between what you study and how you use it in practice, but also how the practice shapes back as to how you're thinking about your own worldviews, your theology, and kind of there is also a certain sense of maturity that through this process of the placement you mature as a student, as a person, kind of bringing new inputs into how you would be approaching the either pastoral or chaplain type of ministry or other type of ministry in the future. So that's very fascinating. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Is there anything else that you would like to, maybe kind of the last thing you would like to shout out to people, or would you like to share that maybe we haven't covered?
Yeah, sure. I'd probably say don't be afraid to ask. The reason that I got this placement was because I just asked. It was something that I was interested in, and I asked, and people said yes. And I didn't expect that I'd be able to end up being in a placement like this.
That is cool.
But I did. So I'd say to people, just ask. If there's something that you really want to do, then you should just ask, and maybe the door will be open to you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Georgie.
No worries.
And I suppose if anyone has any questions, then they can reach out to either you or to Newbold, and then we will be very happy to assist or continue the conversation. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much. Sure. I'd probably say don't be afraid to ask. The reason that I got this placement was because I just asked. It was something that I was interested in, and I asked, and people said yes. And I didn't expect that I'd be able to end up being in a placement like this.
That is cool.
But I did. So I'd say to people, just ask. If there's something that you really want to do, then you should just ask, and maybe the door will be open to you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Georgie.
No worries.
And I suppose if anyone has any questions, then they can reach out to either you or to Newbold, and then we will be very happy to assist or continue the conversation. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much.